Hi, welcome to our DaVinci Resolve template overview. In this video, we'll look at the template from another angle. Now, really quick, I'm going to move over to the track layout, which is the normal view that you're going to see when you're operating in the window. Now, one of the things I want to do right now is I want to disappear this index. Okay, I'm going to collapse this index so we get a little bit more screen room. This is a pretty big monitor that I'm working on, so I got a lot of screen space here. But just in case you don't have a lot of screen space, then you want to be able to hit that index up at the top here, and that's going to collapse or pull open your index in your track list. All right. So we're in our track layout. Now I usually start my projects a little early. I'm at 59:30, and I start my project. You guys can hear that a little bit. Let's just mute that. And you can start your projects there at of course at 1 minute. Okay. All right. So let's go down and let's kill our output. Okay. That way we're not seeing everything here going on. Okay. All right. So we're in our normal track list. And if you're familiar with working in DaVinci, even in your edit thing, this is what you're going to see most of the time. So you're going to see that track layout at the below your video layout. But we're working over in FAIRLIGHT here. So we've got an expanded view of that track layout. And let's just roll through it very, very quickly, okay? Now, what you'll notice is the majority of the tracks here, okay, are mono. The majority of the audio tracks are mono, okay? Because if you're dealing with a film, you definitely want to have the majority of the stuff you do, other than the music, okay? And I would probably say everything you do other than the music, you want it to be mono. Okay, so you definitely want mono tracks, and if we go real quick, if we go back to the index and the track list, you'll see that a lot of these tracks are mono tracks. Okay, now because this is a 5.1 and a stereo, then our buses, a lot of our buses are 5.1 have been laid out as 5.1. Okay, and then there's a mirrored version of that bus that is then a stereo bus. So for instance, in my dialogue, I have my 5.1 print master, and then I have a stereo print master. Okay, so I have two of those that are working at the same level. One is 5.1, one is a stereo, and you'll see that throughout the entire template. But everything that's being fed into it is primarily mono tracks. Now, here's the cool thing, and I'm going to take you back over to the track layout real quick to do this. But as we discussed before, there are some things that challenge the difference between, say, working in the window and Pro Tools versus working in Resolve. And one of the main things is that in Resolve you can actually change the orientation of your track in real time. So let's say that I have my dialogue track here, and for some crazy reason, somebody gives me a stereo. They record they were on location sound. They recorded in stereo. Okay. Now in Pro Tools in the window, I've then got to create a stereo track, or I've got to take that stereo file and make it into a mono track. In Resolve, one of the things I can do is right click here. I can go down and say change track type. And I can change the track type to anything I wanted to do. So let's say that I wanted to change this track to 5.0. Or you know what, better yet, let's change this to Dolby Atmos 7.1.2 track. So I can go in now and change that to a Dolby Atmos track. And as you can see here now, I've got multiple lanes, right? I've got 10 lanes of audio, okay? Because this track, and you can see it here, this track has now become a 7.1.2 track, okay? And I've changed that just by right-clicking and saying change track type. Now I'm going to change this back to mono. As you can see, it's now been changed back to a mono track. That's the one that's on here. And that's one of the really cool, powerful things that Resolve can do. Now, how does that help us outside of changing the orient of a audio file, right? Well, let's say we've got our reverbs. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got our interior reverbs. Right now, that interior reverb is 5.1 because this gives us the option of being able to put a surround sound reverb on plug-in on this reverb track. Okay, now let's say we didn't want to do that. Let's say we just wanted stereo reverbs, right? You just want to put stereo reverbs. You don't want to deal with surround sound reverbs. All you'd have to do is come and be able to change these tracks back to a stereo track. Now, as you can see here now, you can't change this track type. Now, why can't you change this track type when you could change the track type of the dialog file above? Well, you can't change this track type because it's a bus. This is a bus. It's not an audio track type. It's a bus. Here's the difference between one of the differences between the window and, let's say, working at Resolve. Okay, so if I go up to the top here and I go to my FAIRLIGHT menu, I'm going to click bus format. Now, bus format is going to bring up all of my buses. So this is where I would create my buses that that you see over here in the track list. These buses were created here. Whereas if I wanted to create regular audio tracks, I could do them actually in the interface here, like right click and just say add track. Okay. But in order to create buses, I have to do it over here in the bus format under FAIRLIGHT. So I've got my bus format, and as you can see, these are all my buses, right? Now, if I wanted to change the orient of this dialogue interior reverb, okay, so I have to go up and find it, and I'll see my dialogue interior reverb. Here it is. Now, as you can see, it's a 5.1 file. So what I'm going to do, I want to change that to a stereo file. So all I have to do is click on this dialog box under format, and I'm going to say stereo. Okay. And now, as you can see, that changed to a stereo bus. Okay. We're going to change that back real quick so we don't forget to change it out. We're going to hit OK. You can actually put a lot of buses on it. But once again, understand, you've got to add video. And now this would be one of the caveats, I would say, with trying to use FAIRLIGHT as a DAW, okay? You can have high track counts, but you also have to keep in mind that if you're, let's say you're actually editing your film at 4K, you're going to have layers upon layers of 4K video, titles, graphics, so on and so forth. Then you're going to stack color changes on that, and then you're going to try to add 100 or so tracks of audio. You're putting an enormous strain on the system, and if you've got multiple GPU cards, I'm pretty sure Resolve could handle it. Okay, as an in-editor DAW, I wholly believe it's the best out there. Like, it's outstanding as far as its ability to be able to just match up very closely with what you could get from Nuendo and Pro Tools. It's just something to keep in mind, that if you're doing your project and your project is going to be a bigger project where you're delivering in 5.1 surround, and you got this big giant show going on, I would probably stick to a DAW. And the next thing we want to talk about is markers. All right. Now, DaVinci can do markers, of course. It's a nonlinear editor, and you can lay down markers to your heart's galore. Okay. So let's call that and put up our markers here. Then we're going to go here. Let's make this 60 seconds. All right. So we're actually able to take our markers, put our markers in, and I can't show you the window. I can't show you the window right now, but it would be on my other thing. But I'll show you the marker window and where you can actually leave keyframes. You can leave keynotes. And actually, if you double click it here, we can leave some notes. And this is something that your editor, as he starts to work, can actually leave notes. So you can say, cue, cue orchestra music. And let's call this orchestra. All right. So I can put a marker in here. And we'll just call that cue music, whatever. Okay. So I can actually put this in here, and then I can leave notes that can be available for my remixer. Okay. Now, that's really cool. Now, the question though becomes, how does this stack up to doing that with, say, Nuendo or Pro Tools? Now, as I said, I'm not a regular Pro Tool user. I know how to use Pro Tools, but it's not usually in my bag as far as what I use. I'm a Nuendo user. The cool thing about Nuendo, and as you can see here, is Nuendo allows you to put multiple markers. So you can actually, for every group, so I can have markers. I can have markers for my dialogue. I can have markers for my music. I have markers for my sound effects. I can have a different marker track. I can have multiple marker tracks wherever I want them, which allows me to be able to kind of spot things or call out things or cue things from different perspectives. Now, the main thing we want to talk about here, and we touched lightly on this before, was our the use of an LFE track. Okay, and we'll get, like I said, we'll get into this wholly in depth once we get over to the mixer, because you'll be able to see how it works in the panner. But one thing that you have to understand is that the LFE channel in Resolve is not a true, doesn't have a true LFE filter on it. And now I know there is an LFE filter kind of thingy in as a plugin, but I haven't found a lot of success using that as far as especially as a deliverable. So I wouldn't use it. And I usually feed that LFE channel all by itself. The last thing I'll talk about with this layout is the ability to group your tracks, and then therefore be able to quickly move around your interface. Currently, right now, there's no way for you to group. Now, I know there's a group function, okay, with FAIRLIGHT, okay, where you can do link group and assign links to it as a group, where your tracks will behave as one. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the ability to be able to take all of my music tracks, okay? So right now, we're looking at all our dialogue tracks here. So let's take those. I got my dialogue tracks. And if you look here, that's going to be around 30. They're going to end up being around 30 tracks by the time we're finished, okay? So we've got 30 tracks just of dialogue here. That makes me have to scroll down. As you guys can see, it's a time scrolling down. So in other programs like Pro Tools and Nuendo, you can actually take all of these tracks and put them inside of a folder. And once you put them inside a folder, then you can actually take that folder and turn off the folder. Or you can make the folder behave as one by just operating the folder controls. So say I wanted to mute every track that was in here. All I would have to do is mute the folder, okay? So folders, or groups as they're called in some programs, allow you to be able to clean up your interface, to work quickly, to work fast, to the point of being able to just kind of bundle all those things together. And if you want to, set them aside and keep working. So I really wish that's something that in the future Resolve would implement. And I'm sure they will. Those guys are on top of it. I'm pretty sure they will. So, okay, so we're done over here in our layout. The next thing we're going to do is talk about the mixer session. That's when I'm going to get into the routing. And hopefully you guys are learning something here, and let's get to it, okay? So in part 3, we're going to dive into the mixer. See you there.